All right, cranberries and chestnuts. We see them everywhere around the holidays, right? But they come from two completely different worlds. I mean, one's a flooded wetland, and the other is a sunny, dry orchard. So today, we're going to dive into the fascinating science behind how these two iconic crops are actually grown.
I mean, just look at this. On one side, you've got this incredible sea of red berries floating in water. And on the other, you have these huge trees reaching for the sky in a beautiful green orchard. So the big question is, how on earth do growers manage these completely opposite environments to bring us these harvests we love so much? Let's get into it.
You know, for any crop, it all starts with the ground. I mean, long before you even plant a single seed or vine, you have to get the foundation just right. And for cranberries and chestnuts, the word perfect means, well, polar opposites. So first up, we have the large American cranberry, or for all you science folks, Vaccinium macrocarpon. The key word here is wetland. This isn't just some plant that can, handle a little water. No, this thing is a native species that literally evolved to thrive in the soggy, acidic soil of a natural bog. And then, on the complete other end of the spectrum, you've got the chestnut, from the genus Castanea. We're mostly talking about cultivated types, like the Chinese chestnut. They're specifically chosen because they can resist this really awful disease, and trust me, we are definitely going to circle back to that later. But for now, just think classic orchard trees. Okay, this is where you really see how different they are. It's pretty stark. Cranberries? They need a super high water table, which growers carefully manage to keep just 6 to 18 inches below the surface. But chestnuts? You put their roots in a wet spot, and they're done for. They absolutely have to have well-drained, loamy soil. And they're picky too. They prefer an acidic pH somewhere between 5.5 and 6.5. So, once you've got that foundation right, it all comes down to the grower's touch. It's the specific, really hands-on practices that turn a good spot into a super productive farm, and that's what we're looking at next. All right, so here's a puzzle for you. Imagine you're a chestnut grower. You've got this dense 40-foot tall tree. How do you make sure sunlight gets deep down into that canopy? Because without light, you don't get flowers. And without flowers, you don't get nuts. Simple as that. And the solution? It's all about strategic pruning. It's really clever. That tree on the left, the unpruned one, has this huge shaded zone on the inside where pretty much nothing can grow. But look at the one on the right. It's been opened up, letting sunlight hit almost the entire tree. That direct link between light and bigger, better nuts is exactly why pruning is so important. Now let's hop over to cranberries because they have a totally different but just as ingenious technique. And this one started with a simple observation way back in 1816. This guy, Henry Hall, just noticed that where sand from nearby dunes blew over his cranberry vines, they grew better. That little observation became a cornerstone of modern cranberry farming. It's amazing. Today, growers do it on purpose. They add a thin layer of sand every few years. And the benefits are just incredible. Get this. It helps anchor the vines to spur new growth. It buries fungus spores and weed seeds so they can't grow. It messes with insect pests. And it even improves the soil itself. It's this fantastic all-in-one tool. So after a long season of all this careful work, it's finally time for the best part, the harvest. And this is probably the most visually stunning part of the process. And you guessed it, the two could not be more different. For cranberries, growers have two options: harvest them wet or harvest them dry. Now, dry harvesting is pretty much what it sounds like. But wet harvesting? Well, that method takes advantage of a really cool little secret hidden inside the cranberry itself. And it is by far the most popular method. A whopping 90% of all cranberries are wet harvested. So why? It's because every single cranberry has 4 tiny little air pockets inside of it. And what does that mean? It means they float, and growers use this in a pretty spectacular way. Really, it all comes down to what the berry is for. For wet harvesting, the bogs are flooded. Then machines that are basically nicknamed egg beaters, you can just picture it, churn up the water and knock all the berries off the vines. The berries float to the top where they're gathered up. Those are the ones destined for juice and sauce. The much smaller dry harvest, where machines kind of comb the vines, is for that perfect-looking fresh fruit you buy in the bag at the grocery store. Now, the chestnut harvest, oh, it's so much simpler. No flooding, no egg beaters. When the nuts are ripe, that spiky outer shell, it's called a burr, it just splits open and the nuts fall right to the ground. All you have to do is go and collect them. Gravity does most of the heavy lifting for you. But, getting to the harvest, that's never a guarantee. For growers of both of these crops, the entire season is a constant battle against disease. And, as you might expect by now, each one faces a very different kind of enemy. So this is a classic concept in agriculture, the disease triangle. It's a really simple way to think about it. For a plant to get sick, you need three things to happen at once. You need a plant that can get the disease, you need the pathogen itself, and you need the right environment for it to thrive. The whole game for a grower is to try and break at least one side of that triangle. When it comes to chestnuts, especially our Native American chestnut, we're talking about one primary villain. A single, infamous enemy, a fungus, that didn't just kill trees, it literally reshaped entire ecosystems. It's called chestnut blight. It's caused by the fungus Cryphonectra parasitica, and what it does is create these deadly sores or cankers on the tree's trunk that basically strangle it. This single disease wiped out billions, with a B, billions of American chestnut trees. The entire industry today is built around using other chestnut species, like the Chinese chestnut, that have a natural tolerance to it. Now, the threat to cranberries, it's a totally different ballgame. It's not one big monster. It's more like death by 1,000 cuts. Growers are up against what's called a fruit rot complex, which is basically a whole crew of different fungi, all just waiting for the right moment to attack the fruit. And just look at this lineup. And this is only some of them. You've got black rot, bitter rot, end rot, all these different pathogens. This means growers have to play this really complex defensive game, managing conditions to prevent infections from a whole host of different threats that can change from year to year. So what's the big takeaway here? Well, first, it's pretty clear that success for both of these crops comes down to mastering a totally unique environment. We've seen how cultivation practices, like pruning or sanding, are these brilliant solutions to very specific problems. We saw how their harvesting methods are perfectly tailored to the fruit's own biology. And finally, that growers are in this constant, specialized battle against disease. It's pretty incredible when you stop and think about it. From meticulously shaping a 40-foot tree to get more sunlight, to literally flooding an entire field just to make berries float, agriculture is really a story of human ingenuity. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other foods that we take for granted have such a complex, fascinating story behind them?